But ultimately, as I said, the legislature made the right decision, and on this, the government, members of the government, and certainly myself included, would not have been participating in that.
I have always found it outrageous that we would do business with people that we know we can't and ought not to ever trust.
David Menzies for Rebel News here in Toronto. And before I get to our story today, folks, if you can, please go to journalistdefensefund.com. Sometimes we need funds for legal fees, for bodyguard fees, but it's all worth it when it comes to bringing you the other side of the story. Well, folks, I'm on the lawns of Queen's Park, and if you can imagine, about half an hour ago, there was supposed to have been the raising of the flag for communist China. It is absolutely mind-boggling that in the year 2020 that the flag of this regime would be raised on the lawns of the provincial legislature. Now, a small group of protesters has shown up, and I'm going to be talking to them a little later on, but it is a baffling set of circumstances. I mean, why is this even happening, given that China is a human rights sewer when it comes to minority rights? China has inflicted untold trillions of dollars of damage on the world economy thanks to the Wuhan virus. China still incarcerates illegally and tortures the two Michaels. Does this sound like the kind of regime a Western democracy wants to honor with a flag raising for its national day, which is tomorrow, October 1st? Well, there was a stink raised about it in the days before the flag went up, and thankfully it was canceled. But even the cancellation, folks, it was perhaps for the worst reason imaginable. It was for safety. Yeah, because of the COVID-19 virus, the government says it wouldn't be safe to have a congregation on the lawns of Queen's Park. I mean, you don't want a bunch of yahoos showing up to raise the flag of China, after all, do you? No mention of all of China's atrocities that have been inflicted on the world. No mention of the two Michaels. It was disgraceful. Oh, and by the way, just so I presume the Mandarins in Beijing are not offended, the flag-raising ban applies to all flags. Yeah, so even our closest ally, in theory, the United States, if we were to raise the Stars and Stripes, that's a no-go now because of COVID-19. I think it's really because the Doug Ford PCs don't want to be seen as though they are insulting the Beijing regime. Incredible. And the cherry on this sordid Sunday, folks, just about 100 meters down from where I'm standing, the statue of our first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, remains entombed in a wooden coffin with what appears to be a garbage bag over his head, and that's so the likes of Black Lives Matter protesters and Afro-Indigenous Rising protesters don't get triggered and vandalize the statue with paint. So how do you like that? In Doug Ford's Ontario, the statue of our first Prime Minister is offensive and must be hidden away. Yet until just hours ago, there was going to be a flag commemorating China's National Day to be raised right here on the grounds of the legislature. What an absolute disgrace. In any event, I am going to reach out to these protesters, and I should tell you folks, once again, I don't see any other members of the mainstream media here. Yes, it's a small protest, but the idea is very important. I'm going to reach out to them right now and see what they have to say about this disgrace that thankfully was sidetracked at the last moment. What do you make of what happened? I assume you were here to protest the flying of the flag of the People's Republic of China, which was canceled at the last minute. What was the government thinking in doing such a thing in the first place?
Exactly. That's why, because we have been trying to contact the government, especially Doug Ford, and to ask him what's going on here. We want to know whether the flag of the CCP will raise today, but nobody give us an answer. And with all the things happening, like the COVID-19, we call it, and then the Michaels that we, are being detained in China, they really should not allow this flag raised in the Canada soil.
I assume millions of Canadians and others agree with that sentiment, ma'am. And I'm just curious, what do you think about their excuse for why they canceled it? It's because of COVID-19 safety precautions, which not only cancels the raising of this flag, but any other flag for the rest of the year.
Oh, that's the lamest excuse that I ever heard. It's like the COVID just started yesterday. You know what I mean?
And I guess that is a pattern of abuse and bullying when it comes to China. Your sign has Tibet, the Uyghurs, Hong Kong, now the world, and a trail of blood behind the Grim Reaper in a CCP a costume. So I imagine this is a regime that really doesn't follow international law. It doesn't believe in human rights. Why in the province of Ontario, in our democracy of Canada, were we going to fly a flag for the nation of China here?
I think, China is a bully. And I don't understand why we should allow the China flag to fly over the building of Canadian, because it really an insult to the people, to us. And especially, I am a Vietnamese refugee. I escaped Vietnam because the communists. And here, we are in a freedom country, and we allow the communist flag to be raised here. That should not have been allowed for that at all.
5 years ago, in this city, Justin Trudeau, before he became prime minister, he said China is the basic kind of dictatorship that he admires. How do you make sense of that? A prime minister of a democracy saying that he admires the dictatorship in China.
That is an insult to a lot of us who immigrated to Canada to escape from the communist regime, from a dictatorship regime. Not only Vietnam, but many different countries. And for him to say that, it is a real insult. I don't know what he's thinking. Who knows what is under the table? We don't know. All I can say is that as a prime minister, to say something like that is not supported by any type of different people in the world.
Yeah, it was shocking to so many people. And I guess, too, ultimately, if the flag had gone up on this flagpole today, I imagine what's in it for the regime in China, it's propaganda, isn't it? They're showing,
support it, which we never did. It is only a small group of the Chinese communist members. Okay, has nothing to do with Chinese people. We have so many Chinese people around here who is supporting the communist flag flying in this country where they escaped from. So it doesn't make any sense to say that Canadian support. No, we don't support it. Definitely a no-no.
But that's how the regime in Beijing would spin it, wouldn't they? They go, look, at the legislature in the biggest province in Canada, our flag is flying proudly. Just propaganda for them, and we were acquiescing to that.
Exactly, and that is exactly what happening at City Hall last month. Okay, same thing, they allowed the Vietnamese communist flag flying at City Hall. And so it is a propaganda that we do support. No, we don't. We don't support any communist regime here. Just to be clear on that, because that's their propaganda. So if it is a supportive thing, they should open for the people to come. Why do they have to barricade people and they only allow those official people up at the flagpole?
Exactly. And one last question, ma'am. At the end of the day, the silver lining in this story is that this is victory for people like yourself and others who were raising a stink about the Chinese flag going up, because it has been canceled. The excuse is so lame. It's beyond laughable. But still, no flag for the nation of China went up today. That's pretty good news, I should think.
Yes, it definitely is.
Randy, we were here because just a few hours ago, if things had gone according to plan, the flag of Communist China was going to be raised right here in front of the legislature. There was the proverbial shite storm that erupted, and the government decided it would not go ahead. But it was, I think, Randy, kind of a lame way to shut down the flag raising, because they said, oh, no, it's not about the communist flag of China. All flag raisings are now canceled because of COVID-19 safety protocols. Can you believe what we're hearing these days?
Well, listen, I can say for sure, because I've been in the Conservative caucus, and this is not the first time that this has come up, and maybe we'll chat about that. But listen, this is clear to me. We know that the Speaker never agrees to these things without having taken into consideration and having discussions with government and understanding the political circumstances of the day. So when Ford threw the Speaker under the bus initially on this, it was wrong. It was deflecting culpability and responsibility. But, now we know that if we're not going to celebrate the Communist Chinese Party, we're not going to celebrate anybody.
Including America, like our largest ally, by according to these.
All our friends and allies, we are rejecting them, so Doug Ford and the Conservative Party doesn't offend the Communist Chinese Party.
No. Aren't you gentlemen members of the Assembly?
Yeah, I'm glad the Assembly made the right decision, and they're not flying the flag. So.
Okay, and who are you, sir, by the way?
Paul Calandra, the government House Leader.
Oh, okay then. Mr. Calandra, what in the world was your government thinking allowing that flag until just hours ago to go up on the lawns of Queen's Park?
As you know, David, it's actually a decision that was made in the last Parliament that the decisions with respect to the flag raisings are handled by the Protocol Office here in the legislature and not by the government. It was a decision that was made by the last Parliament as a result of a lot of unanimous consent motions to fly the different flags. So the last government decided, all the Parliament actually had decided that the Protocol Office should be in charge of that. So,
but 2020 is a different kettle of fish from 2018.
And I'm glad for whatever reason the legislature, the officials in the Protocol Office, I think personally made the right decision, and I'm glad that that's the decision that was made. Okay. I don't disagree with anybody. It was certainly not something that I was going to be attending. I think it's.
But the Deputy Speaker, Rick Nichols, he was going to be attending. What kind of remarks was he going to say about this regime that is a human rights sewer that is incarcerating two Canadians, the two Michaels? What was he possibly going to say at the flag raising?
Well, look, I know the Speaker Nichols raised some concerns about this in caucus when he's in the Speaker's. As a speaker, he's a representative of the Legislative Assembly, not a representative of the party. But ultimately, as I said, the legislature made the right decision, and on this, and the government, members of the government, and certainly myself included, would not have been participating in that. We've been very, very firm right from the beginning that Communist China has to do a heck of a lot better job. They have two Canadians held hostage, and this is not the place to be raising that flag.
Mr. Calandra, one last question. Okay, thank you for your time, Mr. Calandra. Well, in the final analysis, this is a good news story indeed. The flag of Communist China is not going to be raised on the lawns of the Queen's Park legislature. However, what indeed was the government thinking? Now, I did reach out to Rick Nichols. He's the MPP, the Deputy Speaker, who was going to make remarks at the flag raising. I have not heard back from his office yet. But where, oh where, is Premier Doug Ford on this outrageous slight to our democracy? Well, he's pretty much nowhere to be found on this file. In fact, he's hiding behind the skirts of his press spokeswoman, Ivana Yilich. This is what she had to say in a statement. Quote, "The Ontario Legislative Assembly has a flag policy independent of the political parties and the government. It is not the appropriate time to be raising this flag, and neither the Government of Ontario nor the PC caucus will be sending a representative, end quote. Yeah, that's real tough talk. That's really taking a stand against communist China and standing up for the two Michaels. Isn't it, Premier Ford? Maybe you ought to get back in the basement and bake some more cherry cheesecake. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, if you can, please go to journalistdefensefund.com, and if you're able to, make a donation. Sometimes we incur fees when it comes to bringing you the other side of the story, but I think the end results are worth it.